We're rolling? All right. Hi, everyone.
Right.
Back with another episode of Shtajio's vlog. This is episode 35.
Episode 35, yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm Henry Thurlow.
I'm Arthell Isom.
So what is our topic today, Arthell?
So our next topic, will be about, as creators, I think that, so like with all the creators who are out there, or the people who's making manga or animation or working, graphic design firm or whatever, or have you have things that you want to create, or you have your own sense of style or something, but then your clients have their own sense of style and the things that they're looking for that they hope that you can create for them, and occasionally, you can gel, and you and the clients are like on the same wavelength, and like what you make is, like, both of you guys are really happy. Ideally, that's where you want to be, but in most cases it's not, right? Because clients, that's the nature of work, right? Like the clients want something and then you're providing this service for them. So the clients might want something, and then so it's like, what do you do during that time? Because we get sometimes there's creators who struggle with that, where they like something and they think it's so cool, but the clients didn't like it, and then the things that the clients came up with is not as cool as what you thought would be, or it's not as cool as the idea that you came up with.
That is always the case. Every artist out there, there's almost never a situation where it's like the client re-edits your thing, or cuts something, or comes in with one additional idea. Let's put a hat on this guy, and it makes it better. It's always like, why is the client ruining our project? Especially right at the end, right? Because you think you got through all of those tough conversations in pre-production, so it's like, okay, it was tough, but we did it, now we make it. And then, of course, the client, being the client, gets to make their decisions. And I've never in my life seen an example where I'm like, wow, that was a great client note.
Like I don't know if I'm as extreme as Henry. Like I some of the clients notes are pretty good and they make sense to me. But
as the CEO would say, who deals with all the clients.
I think but I do also understand how the artists feel, who are just working on things, and we give them, we have to pass down the client's notes, and so I think that's an interesting feeling, because when you're working with clients, I feel that the most important thing is communication with the client. So, and not only communication during the process of the production, but prior to the production, which is probably even more important. And what I mean by that is, there are certain things that you like to do. So if you, or that as an artist, that you would like to do, and, I'm not sure what all of you like. You can please comment, like what kind of issues you've come up with, or what kind of things you want to create. Please comment and tell us about it. But we might hear where you love whatever, rabbits and flowers, and so you want to put that in your work, but the client is like, no, I just want this to be dark and rocky and death. Now, obviously, those are two opposing images, right? It's like those two things have like nothing to do with each other. They're two different, demographics and target audience and things.
It would be. Can I just stop you for a little bit, just to get a better metaphor? Just because because those are two very different topics. Like in that case, I wouldn't even stick up for the artist, because you can't put bunnies in the commercial that demands a dead desert scene, right? But the difference would be like if the client's like, I need a lively forest scene with lots of forest critters, and you're like, great, I love drawing rabbits, I'm really good, let's put some rabbits. No rabbits. What the... this matches exactly what your image is, and I want to put the rabbits there. And then the client's just like, I don't like rabbits. And then you're like, this is craziness, right? That would be... because the artist would feel then, justifiably, my idea is better.
I see what you're saying.
They have no right to put rabbits in the death scene. But if they're asking for furry forest critters, why the heck can't you go with the artist's suggestion, right?
And I think that, and so in those 2 points, so with the communication prior, is first to figure out exactly what it is that the client wants, right? Because if you don't figure that out from the beginning, so like with the example that Henry just gave, you like rabbits, the client doesn't. Now, if you didn't find that out before you started the process, and you start, and you go with all your image boards and things, and now you have all these rabbits everywhere, of course the client's just going to come back and just be like, oh, I wanted a happy forest. Why are all these rabbits there? And you're like, well, that is a happy forest, right?
Yeah.
Because that's your image of a happy forest, but it's not the image that the client's.
Right.
But the image that's important is the client's image, right? It's not the artist's image, and it's weird because artists, we feel that, but that's what we're getting paid for. We're getting paid to create an image for the clients that they don't know what they want, right? But not really, right? So artists, like, our job is to kind of create things because the clients can't create it. So we have to kind of try our best to, so they have an image, right? Which is the reason most likely why they get in contact with our companies. There's an image in their head, or an image, somewhere in the world, in the world of the creative river. There's this image there, and they hope that we can pull the same that image out of there, and that they're gonna love it. But the only way to get to that is by communicating what it is that the clients want, and so, but that's always the source of conflict, I feel, because like when you're working on the production, inevitably the client's going to come back with just lots of notes and lots of changes that are kind of that are opposite of what you thought was the direction that you wanted to go. And when you're working with clients, like, ideally you want to get those changes down to as minimal as possible, like as small as number as possible, I think. So how do you do that? I don't know, like with the example that Henry gave with the rabbits, I think, you have to try your best to give examples of things prior. So like, okay, oh, do you mean, so yeah, communication. Oh, do you mean like you like rabbits, you like deer, you like whatever. Give some more examples of furry animals and things prior to really just moving forward with like a finished piece, That way then you get all of the clients, as much of the client's input as possible. And you try it, because the goal is always to kind of be on the same wavelength as the client. And the clients, I don't know, they're always gonna, well, not always, like the things that you like, probably the clients won't like, but like, so you'll hope that they do. And so that was with the extreme example that I gave in the beginning, because there's two types of clients. So I think with the example that Henry gave with the rabbit and the forest, at least you're kind of still working in the direction that you both are kind of comfortable with. And with the extreme example, the reason I gave that example was you want to also, so even though the clients are choosing you, and like and all of us are in a position where like, if we're working in the service industry, we need clients, we need money, but you don't want to take a job that you aren't really, not qualified to do, but like that you're not in sync.
It goes against your image entirely.
Yeah, like it's just all against, like, everything about you.
So I have a lot to say about the other stuff we were talking about, but for this point we agree entirely. Yeah. If you are faced with a job, now look, if you're a struggling freelance artist and you need the job, you might just have to take it, right? And everyone understands that. But if you are in any kind of position to choose your projects even a little bit, then keep in mind what every job you take on will do to your resume, to your portfolio, and to your image. So if I take this on, will this be a positive? And most of the time it is yes, right? Even if it's not totally what you do. Let's say you do character animation, but they're like, this is an advertisement thing. Well, having an advertisement in your portfolio and learning how to do that is also positive. So there's nothing really wrong with that, right? But if a job comes in and you're like, wow, that is completely the exact opposite of what I do and my image is, this could be detrimental actually to my resume. Like that my name was attached to not a bad project necessarily, but just something that it's like, that is not the image that my entire career is trying to show. Be careful for that. Maybe a different job is something that you will be happier to have decided on, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because then you're just being in conflict the whole time while you're trying to work on this, because it's, first, it won't come naturally to you, like the creative, I guess the creativity that the clients is requiring you to have access to, like that won't come natural. So everything you're doing is gonna be really forced, and so what you give to the client will be forced. And sometimes that's good, right? Put yourself in an uncomfortable position, you might make something great.
Right.
And but there's also probably more times than not.
I'm always for challenging yourself. If you think, oh man, this is a little bit too hard for me, I think, well then I say take it. challenge yourself, right?
Yeah.
But if you're like, oh man, this project is racist or something, right? Like, even if it pays well, it's like, do you want this? Is that really something that is worth putting on?
Putting your effort into, and
so back to the other point of like when you're working with clients, but they don't, So I don't know what all of you viewers think of, Arthell and I, and how we work together. Mm-hmm. Like we probably come across incredibly friendly on this. This topic is where we do have kind of contentious back and forths, right? Because I am essentially, it depends on a case by case basis. Sometimes we're in complete agreement, and other times maybe we'd even be on the opposite end. So it is a case by case basis. But generally speaking, I'd be on the side of no, like we're the artists, and we are trying to put forth certain imagery that represents us as a studio. If a commercial is done at Ghibli, would be my argument. Like you can tell it's Ghibli, right? Like, if a client is asking for stuff that is like not our ideas at all, right? I feel as the production studio, like we have some say, and then this is where we would go back and forth. No, we don't, and you'd say no, we don't. Like the client, is the client. Like respect the client, et cetera, et cetera. I would be more contentious even towards the client and be like, now look, you hired us, and this is like the right. So I am all for, to be honest, like the artists are the one you hired the artists, not most likely as a pair of hands. That would need to be discussed early on in the process. If truly what they are asking for is just a pair of hands and animate 3 sequences and don't have any emotional attachment to the project, I am fine with that also, right? Like I do get that, right? I can't put myself into every little thing. Like that's not just the job. When we worked on Castlevania Season 3, like we were doing cleanup animation. Obviously, I do not get say in how the sequence plays out because we were hired to do a job, and I hope we did the best artistic job possible for that. I think we did. But obviously, I don't get to put myself in that. But from projects that we start from scratch, and in those early discussions, we do want your input. We do want your visions, and da-da-da. When that's the way the conversation progresses, and then because of those conversations, I'm like, okay, then I'm going to put myself into this, and then I start to put myself into this. Way later on down the line, oh, remember how you put all yourself into this, Henry, and you dedicated all that emotional energy and everything? Well, actually, cut this and this and this, and put a hat, and this guy's this and this. Da-da-da. That's when I kind of want to fight a little bit. Now, look. Hold on a second. You hired us for a reason because you trusted us as good artists and a good production studio. Now you need to let us take over a bit, right? But that's when you and I go back and forth. Henry, stop yelling at the clients. You don't do that, right? And so that's when we go back and forth. So actually, to be honest, sometimes Arthell and I do not get along like this, and it's very, very heated. And almost every case goes back to that point. Which is that I am for the case of the mindset that they're not just hiring us as a pair of hands to draw something when they say that early on in the process, and when they kind of take back, like go back out on that deal, like early on in the process, don't worry, you guys have your creative input. When they back out on that later on in the process, I get very heated.
I think, and that's understandable, right? Because I think that, so kind of just comes back to communication. Like Henry said, if something was agreed on initially, but then the clients renege on that later, like of course that's going to cause that'll be a major point of contention, and it's going to cause conflict. Not a conflict is like arguing, but it disrupts the schedule, it disrupts the creative process, it disrupts everything, right? And it makes it really hard to kind of move forward smoothly with the production. But as workers, like the goal is to always still keep the production moving forward, and so that's when, as an artist, we have to try to decide, well, what's the best way to move forward, right? But then even at that point, communication is also important. Then you need to be able to tell the client, well, how difficult it is to then make those changes, and then you have to think about for yourself too, like how can you get the image that the client wants from at that point, like how do we, so we're here, this is where we got to, the client wants something totally different, it's not, and it might not be something that you're used to drawing, that you want to draw, but now you have to figure out how can you do that, right? And I think working with clients like that is a major that's I think that's the major issue that artists has, and so you'll see that saying that the clients never know what they want, right? That's what people always throw around. Clients never know what they want, and I don't know how I feel about that. Like, I think the clients know what they want, but sometimes clients just change their mind along the way, and like, they think of things just like pop up in their head while they're working, and so as artists you have to be very clear with the clients so that they can understand that I mean, everything is okay, right? The clients are always right, like, essentially, but you have to be able to communicate to the client that this is going to take time, or these changes are going to take time, or and sometimes the client might not understand everything, and so they might have an idea that's the opposite of what you think will work for a scene, and probably the idea that you have may be better, right? And it's like, well, yeah, but this is going to keep the pacing, this is going to be forward moving, or this is whatever. And so you want to still be able to get that, you want to be able to express that to the client, and so you give that option. But if the client says no, then it's like, well, whatever. Like, like,
don't you think though? Then so here you can actually witness one of these experts. So if I know that this action sequence needs 3 sequences right here, right, and this middle one is important because without this middle one, nothing's going to make sense. The fourth wall is going to be broken, and no one's going to know what direction the character is coming from. It's going to be bad. It's going to ruin it, right? Artistically, it's going to ruin it, and I genuinely think even the viewer will not understand what's happening, and understanding what's happening is important. The client says, no, take out that middle one. But it will ruin it. You know what I'm saying? Like, at what point to what extent do you have to fight for that? Because keep in mind, let's say you just say, well, at the end of the day, the client gets what they want. Okay, but then the project released to the world by Shtajio has massive artistic flaws in it. And how is that for studio image?
That's when you say, oh, the client was a director.
The client was the director.
The client was a director. It was not directed by us. Sorry. No, but like,
you see what I'm saying, though? It's not super easy, because it's not, I mean, unless you are doing a job just for work. And so again, some things are just animate 3 sequences for us. Fine, I have no emotional attachment. But if you're like, okay, this is going to be something that our name is attached to, and let's say during the actual production, there are in-house directors and in-house animation directors and everything, right? And they're excited about the project. It's not that easy to just throw that all away at the end of 5 months of hard work.
Yeah, I always think that we have to always, so as artists and we're working, we have to always look at the bigger picture as well. So because we're kind of seeing things so closely, and sometimes what we think might not work might totally be fine, at least with the audience, right? And so the viewers see things totally different. Like, they're going to be watching this commercial or this movie or whatever it is that you put out there, a poster or a comic book, and so you might be working with a publisher or something, and then you have these ideas, and you're like, man, this dialogue that I had there was so perfect, and it really expressed my character. And yeah, but when the fans read your manga or whatever it is that you made, they see it, they won't even know that dialogue was there. Now, you might be right that dialogue was super important, and it would like totally, it might have changed the viewer's view of your character or their impression of your character, but it's not there when they get it, and they still have because it's a whole thing, so they still have the view that you wanted, because the rest of the chapters help them to still understand that character's arc and things like that. And so I think that is also important to think about.
And I totally disagree. 100%. Because, and we could just go all into that, which we won't do. But if that line of dialogue was going to change the entire point of it, and we as a staff worked to make something that was going to represent that first thing, then to take it out just because, well, the client nonchalantly said they want it out. Oh, so at the very end, nonchalantly, they just changed the entire point of our entire project that we dedicated ourselves to. I understand as a CEO, you need to accept that you're happy that the client was happy at the end of it. But as an artist and director, like, it is impossible to accept just throwing away of
that's a good point that Henry said.
Emotional attachment.
The clients always have to be happy. but yeah, and that's it. And that is the difficulties of working in just like a creative field, like, you know, where we kind of sometimes we in all our vlogs talk about the difference between like a creative field and more of I don't know what the opposite of a creative field would be. What's the opposite word? But like,
yeah, no, there is a word for it. Was
like,
it workforce or just?
Like, yeah, just like something. Put it in the comments if you know what that word is. But like where it's like certain things are just decided, right? And like this is just what it is. And but with a creative field, because everyone
Public service, something like that.
Yeah, something. But where in the creative, it's like everyone's. It really is objective, right? The creative field is objective. It's not a subjective viewpoint. And so, like certain things that are subjective, it's like, well, this is just what it is, right? But when it's objective, it's based off of everyone's opinion. And I think that is difficult, right? That's the difficulties of our field. And so, when you're working with clients, you want to hopefully have. You want to try to work with clients that hopefully you're somewhat in line, right? With that where you want to at least get before you start the production. Hopefully, you guys can be somewhat in line. Your views and the end goal and your ideology and your objective views of what you want. That's the goal, I think. So that should always be your goal when you first start a production. Sometimes it might not work. Now, and so, but that should be your goal when you meet a client and you take work. Because if it's not, and you're only thinking like, well, this pays a lot of money, so let's just go, then that's when you're gonna have all these conflicts, and you're gonna like so many problems are gonna come down the line, and you're gonna be thinking that you know best, but you can't know best. That you can't. How can you know better than the client when the client is paying you to do something?
Well, even you, Arthell, know. You know, yeah. It's funny.
Oh, no. I don't mean best in process. I think that's different. I mean best in end product. Right, and so process. Of course, the creative will know better.
Obviously, we're not going to name names here.
And so what I mean by that is like the client. I'm not saying the client's right? But the goal is like, well, the saying is that the client is always right, and so the client in their mind, as like I always feel like as long as they feel they're right, like okay, great, like then you got it. You know, as long as you're happy with that thing. Good to go.
Well, I will say this. I'll end on a more positive note. It makes me appreciate good clients.
Yeah.
There are in the very rare case, there's a client, and I will name this name, like Sturgill Simpson's Sound and Fury, where like honestly, like they were so receptive of all the artistic, creative ideas, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's like the dream, right? Yeah. Of like that was an incredibly receptive, understanding client for all artistic input. But then there's also clients that I do appreciate genuinely that maybe their vision isn't exactly my vision, but they are very clear at the very beginning. They do sit for those long conversations. And then everything's laid out very clearly at the beginning. So then at least we all know the direction we're going. And then the production can still be very pleasant. And we can all do it well from start to finish without any issues popping up, right? Because the client, you know, they did their job properly of truly explaining the vision and what is necessary, right? Unfortunately, that is 1%.
Yeah, that would always be. I think that will generally be the lower percentage, right? Until you can get to a point where you can choose your clients really well. But ideally, try your best to choose your clients. And like when you work with artists and things, like a lot of the artist clients, that those projects seem to go very smoothly, I think. And then you have the clients who don't understand anything about art, and those can sometimes be, that's when you can get a lot of contention. But so, if I had to say, so how should you feel when you feel that like what you want is better than what the client wants? Like obviously Henry has a different opinion, but I feel like you have to just kind of, communicate. I'm not saying like don't say anything, like don't just let the client beat you upside the head with like their idea. Like that's not what I mean. So communicate your ideas.
And at the end of the day, to not mislead like maybe newbie artists, I'm talking to someone that's been here for a while. So if I'm talking to a 10+ year veteran, okay, we're on a certain wavelength that I'm talking. If you're an absolute newbie coming here for some advice, understand as frustrated as I might be, and especially when you're new, at the end of the day, you will have to accept the client's final decision. I hope there's no artists that take what I say and it's like, well, now I'm going to fight with my client. No, finish your freelance job correctly. You need that on the resume. You know, I'm just saying these are the frustrations you will be faced with. Don't think that it's, oh, I'm going to work on art and man, I
can make whatever I want.
I love that I'm going to get fun creative input. Wow, what a lovely career. There are moments of incredible frustration.
Yeah. So we're in there. So,
Shtajio. See you guys next time.
Peace.